Welcome back, Boldly His family, or welcome if this is your first time. I'm Faith, and this is Megan, and Megan just got engaged. I'll let her.
Yes, so it's been like 2 months since our last video, but a lot of things have happened since our last video. So kind of funny. I mean, obviously very exciting, but Faith actually got to be at my engagement, which was the coolest thing ever. But I would say since our last episode is probably a week or so after that one came out. But yeah, I'm going to be a wifey, which is so exciting. And so we're just kind of get into the story of everything that happened, but also Faith can tie right into it because she was there for all of it. She knew. I texted her the night before.
I told a few lies. Oh, so I'll give a little backstory. I got a text from Megan's mom the night before, and we were supposed to podcast. I can't remember which day was it. Was it Sunday?
Probably.
I think it was a Sunday. But we were supposed to podcast the next day, and Megan had texted me. She was like, "Hey, like, what time do you want to plan on filming?" And I was like, "Oh, like, I can do later in the day." And her mom had already texted me about the engagement, and I was like, "Oh, little does she know." But yeah, I was there, and it was so much fun. And I got to take pictures, which was, I had to lock in. I was like, I don't think I got stressed until like I actually saw them walking in, and I was like, all right, this is game time. Like, I was like, I cannot be shaking. Like, I have to lock it in. But yeah, it was so much fun.
So what role did you know that you had to do besides like take pictures? Because I know you were there early, so you probably like helped set up and everything. But no, I don't remember at least.
We set up. Kind of Preston had been like FaceTiming us the whole day, telling us like what he wanted it to look like. And so your mom had came with like so many props. And she was like, "Faith, just like make this look good. Like wherever it goes, it's fine." And then we were like trying to place, we like had told Preston where he needed to stand so that like they weren't in like the direct sunlight, and like Megan was like on the right side and like all of the things. So we set up a bunch of flowers and everything. And we brought probably like 5 or 6 cameras. And yes, and my dad ended up coming because I did forget a memory card. So he had to save the day. And then he got dragged into being there for the rest of the time, which it was funny.
So day of, which if I'm remembering, it must have been a Sunday. I think it was. But I also like don't remember going to church that day. I feel like I probably did. Like maybe I worked that morning or something. I did work that morning actually. Now I'm remembering. But yeah, I went to work, and then I had no idea until Preston texted me, and he was like, "I'm picking you up at 3:45," and I'm like, "For what?" And he's like, "Don't worry about it." And I'm like, "Psh, boy, you're trying to be slick. That did not work." And he's late. He's just like me. We're late everywhere all the time. And he was like 15 minutes early. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to maybe like do a little extra effort with my hair and maybe put on like a better outfit just in case. But to his defense, I still had no idea where we were going. So yeah, then we get in the car and we're just driving, and I'm like, okay, so where are we going? And he's like, "I'm taking you to dinner." It is 4:00. So I don't know why we're going to dinner at 4. But I was like, okay, where are we going? And he says Scalepi's, because that's our favorite Italian restaurant in St. Castle Rock. So we're like on the direction to go to Castle Rock. I believed the man. But then he took the exit to Parker. And I was like, "You're exiting too early. It's not for Castle Rock." And he's like, "I'm exiting at the right time." And I'm like, okay, hands off. You do you, whatever. And I couldn't think of a single place that we could be going in Parker. I'm like, where, if he's proposing to me, I don't know where we could be going. This just, and then it wasn't until we got to like the very south end of Parker, and I was like, what even is over here? Castlewood Canyon's over here, and that's where our first date was. So I'm like, okay, that has got to be it. So then we're just like chatting, and we pull into Castlewood Canyon, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm suspicious of you. And fast forward to like after everything happens. So we park there, and from my perspective, Like, I just think he's dilly-dallying. And I'm like, I don't know what we're doing. Maybe he's nervous or something. He ends up telling me after that he had like hid the ring box in the side door of his car. But then every time he'd like slam on the brake, the box would slide, and like I should have seen it. Like it was coming into view on the side, like where he had it hidden in the car door. So then he was trying to figure out like a way to grab it without me being like, he thought I would have already seen it, whatever. He took forever and I couldn't figure out what was going on. But yeah, so then he just grabs my hand and we just start walking. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm walking into, but I'm pretty confident that something's about to go down. And we're walking to like where he ended up proposing, and we're just like on the main hiking path. And then he's like, let's go this way, and just like takes this random left. And I don't see anything. I'm all nervous. And then we come around a corner and there's candles lining the way to this opening where there's just like this heart shaped out of flower petals in my favorite color. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening. And then I hear this Alan Jackson song start playing, and I'm like, it's in the trees. Oh my gosh, what's going on? And I'm not looking around because I'm like, I'm not going to say I was blacked out. Like, I mean, I remember it, but she's blurry in my brain. But thank goodness for all 7 of those cameras, because I did not miss a moment. We had one that was set up, or I think, weren't you doing the like formal video?
Yeah. Okay. So my mom had like one of my like digital cameras, and then the camera that you guys are watching on is the camera that I had. And then we had a phone. My phone was on the tripod set up so that we had that one videoing. I was videoing. My mom was taking pictures. Your mom was taking pictures. Preston's mom was taking pictures, and Preston's sister was taking pictures. So we had everyone, like everyone was locked in. I was hiding in the bushes, and then I had to like full sprint out to the rock because I was like, shoot, I cannot miss her like walking down. And that's when I actually did start to get a little nervous, because I was like, I gotta go, I gotta get the camera going. Like the camera wasn't even focused yet. So yeah, but it was a lot of fun.
The timing was perfect. I mean, I never turned around. Like I mean, because I heard music, I knew people were there, and everyone knows how much I love pictures. So like, I wasn't concerned that there wasn't a camera there, but he proposes, and like, y'all will have to go to my Instagram and go watch the video. Yes. Everyone was in camo, so I didn't see everyone until he finished proposing. It's totally beautiful. Go watch the video on my Instagram. And then I turned my head, and there's like 8 people standing there, because it was my mom, Faith and her mom, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, all the cameras. Oh yeah, Faith's dad was still there because he had came to drop off the SD card, and he didn't have time to leave, or I would have seen him and it would have been like, surprise, Faith's here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many people here. And like, quite frankly, when I pictured my engagement, I didn't think I would have really wanted many people there, but then I was so happy that they were. And then I ended up just like FaceTiming a bunch of people after, and I recorded all their reactions, and it was so fun. I was like riding on a high. I probably didn't go to bed that night until like 3 a.m. because I'm just like looking at pictures, making the video, and just enjoying the whole moment. But yeah, it was so special. And I mean, he even brought the Lord into our engagement, which was so cool. Now we're just looking forward to the rest of our lives, which is just so incredibly exciting. And it was so fun that Faith was there and dressed up in all camo head to toe. I'll have to try and like insert a picture or something.
That would be hilarious.
I have to figure out.
Yeah. We'll put it in the middle.
So it was super fun.
Pops up right here. Yeah. No, he prayed over her, and it was so sweet. I remember Luke, my brother, he was like, that made me like, I almost shed a tear. He was like, that was so sweet. So kind of switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk today a little bit just about like what to look for, and how to like pick out good character from bad character. As we know, at least Megan's on the right track. Question for you: what did you see in Preston that like set him apart from your past relationships?
I feel like I have a pretty good sense about people pretty fast. And if I were to compare when I met Preston to when I met former relationships, I feel like Preston did not waste any time. Even before we were dating, and he had, which I guess it takes like 5 seconds to explain how we met. So long story short, we've known each other since middle school, but we never had any classes together or anything. He was just my hallway crush, and I just thought he was so out of my league, and I thought he was so cute. I was like, he's got to have a bunch of girls in his DMs. I don't need to be one of them. So that was just what it was all of middle school and high school. And we would have a couple of like, he'd follow me on Instagram and then I'd follow him back and then he'd unfollow me. So then I'd unfollow him back. And that was just all that it was. It was a weird dynamic. But anyways, we wound up at the same concert the end of our senior year, and he went and stalked my Instagram. By stalked my Instagram, he liked 30 posts in a row. Oh. And that was his way of saying, okay, I'm interested. It was really funny. I was actually I remember sitting on the couch just like chilling with my mom, and I saw those notifications and I was like, Mom, hold the phone. Preston and Ryan just liked my whole Instagram. It's game on. It's finally happening. She knew, everybody and their mom knew. I have a screenshot I took of him in like middle school that's still in my camera roll. It's crazy. Like, I was not hiding my affection for this guy. But anywho, when we actually formally started like talking and everything, he slid into the DMs after the concert because that was something that we could talk about. And I would say within the first 3 or 4 days, we were already, talking like, what do you look for in a relationship? And he hasn't dated anyone before me, so now he just hasn't dated anyone ever, so that's great. But why hadn't he been in a relationship? In the relationships I'd been in, why were they different? And when I just loved the fact that he wasn't wasting any time. Like, he wanted to know what my intentions were from the get-go. And we went on one date before he was like, oh yeah, you're going to be my girlfriend. So we just went on a hike, which of course ended up being where he proposed. But we just like chatted the whole time. And after that date, I remember thinking, it was so much fun and I enjoyed all my time with him and that was great, but we didn't really talk about faith at all. And I remember that from my relationships before him, not talking about that early was a mistake that I had made, because I'd end up bringing it up after we were already dating. And by then, Faith and I have talked about this. It's like you've already given them the answers that they want to hear. So when you say like, are you Christian? Well, they already know that you are. So they're going to be like, oh yeah, me and God go way back, let me tell you. And that just kind of sets you up for failure because you expect that there's something that they're not. But with Preston, when I asked him about his faith, he was very straightforward that he didn't have like any long-term connection with God, but he's always been interested, but just didn't know where to start. And I was like, I can work with that, but you also have to understand that if God's not going to be a big part of your life, then I'm not going to be either. And he was totally fine with that. So when we first started dating, I can admit we probably should have brought God into it earlier than we did, but I think within the first 2 or 3 months was when we started going to church together. And then once we started long distance, he found a church on his own. He found a young adults group on his own. I was doing my discipleship group at college, and I had a church and friends that I was going to. So we were developing our faith on our own, which was really important for sure. But I just never had to doubt what his intentions were with me, I guess is the answer to that question. Because if I look at other past relationships, I would say same thing where I gave them the answers early in the talking stage, but also if they just said that they were Christian, then I expected that they were the same level of Christian that I was. And I was also, I was young, so I didn't really know how much it can vary, because you can believe in the Lord and like have a solid faith, but are you actually devoting your life to him? Not necessarily. And I think I'm looking for someone who can lead me, and I don't have to drag a man to church. I never ever want to have to do that. And I definitely was in that position with past relationships. One guy had his Bible on his nightstand. So to me, that was like, oh, he reads his Bible every night. No, should have looked at that earlier.
Should have opened it up.
Yeah, I'm like, I should have opened it up and be like, so you have to tell me about something from the Old Testament. because then he would have given me nothing, but it's fine. So yeah, I never had to doubt his intentions, and that never changed the whole relationship. I never felt like I couldn't trust him, which was really, really huge.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and I think that's something that a lot of girls are looking for. And I know that, like, if you are a guy and you are watching this right now, I would say that there is definitely a lack of guys who are in pursuit. And I think, I'm not really sure where that stems from, but I mean, I was even having a conversation with one of my friends the other day, and he was like, Faith, you're too picky. And he was like, you are too picky, and like, I don't really think that someone needs to ask you on a date. Like, I don't understand why you can't hang out as friends. And then, like, if it goes well, because then he's like, then you're spending money on the girl. And I'm like, so me personally, I don't think that my future husband's going to be like, hey, Faith, can we go hang out as friends? Like, and then I'll ask you on a date if I like you. If I feel like spending money on you, I'm like, okay. I don't know how our generation got so, like, and I know it can be intimidating to, like, ask a girl on a date. I don't disagree with that. But I think if you're a God-fearing guy and you want to marry a God-fearing girl, you need to put your foot forward and be like, hey, I want to take you on a date. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but, like, why are we asking to hang out? Like, are we in middle school? I don't know. That's just my thing. But I think that that is, like, something that a lot of girls should be looking for, like you said.
And maybe that's also just tied in with Southern charm.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's part of our types, but at the same time, little things like a guy who's not willing to pay for your $15 at Chick-fil-A, what's that going to turn into down the road? Right. I think if you actually look at things in the long-term perspective, then it kind of opens your eyes. Like, if I'm having trouble communicating with a guy over text or over Snap, what happens when he goes on a business trip and he's going to be gone for 2 weeks with his female coworkers? Yeah. And if I don't feel like I can fully trust his decisions, like if you can't trust it now, once you're married, you're not going to trust it 10 times worse. No. So I think looking at things in long term, and I think that's another culture thing, is, I mean, I'm engaged at 20. I'm one of the first, like, people our age to be engaged. And I'm not going to lie and say there's a lot of people who are a little thrown off by it and like, well, you're throwing away your 20s. But to me, it's just looking long term. Right. And looking at how is this going to impact me if we were to stay dating for another 4 years versus if we were going to get married and build our relationship, especially in the way that the Lord designed it to be. Because the Lord didn't design dating. No. Like, I saw a video about that. You know, dating has only been around for 120 years. Like, sure, some of the parts of dating are good in finding someone that's more compatible and you're not just being courted off with someone. Of course, I support that. But also having 6-month-long talking stages and then dating for 6 years and then being engaged for 4, like, get to it. What are you waiting for?
I think that's something that is definitely like a modern day thing. And I think that stems from people not wanting to settle down with one person in hopes that something better comes along, or waiting for something better to come along, waiting for something prettier, someone more good looking, that's just what I've noticed in society. And I think that's why a lot of people don't commit. But there's also a verse in the New Testament. I want to say Galatians, but I could be wrong. And it says it's better to be married than to burn with lust. And I think that that's just something that I don't really quite understand. I talk to a lot of people that are like, oh, I can't even imagine getting married right now. And I think that it's okay to not necessarily want to, like, get married right away. But I also think that, like, me personally, I know that, like, if I were to start dating someone tomorrow, I'm not going to date them for 3 years before we get engaged. Like, I'm just not. Like, I think that it takes way less time than that to decide, like, we're going in the right direction or we're not, and we need to go our separate ways. And that's that. Like, I don't understand why it takes so much, like, thinking. Because in my mind, it's like you're just waiting for something better to come along. Like, you're just like, okay, like, I'm going to date her or him for 3 years, and we're going to see how it goes. And then, like, if 3 years goes by and I don't find anyone better, then oh, well, like, I'm not understanding that.
I think there's a lot of lessons that come from just being put into, we're kind of in the dating culture, just because in college I would say there's 3 different types of people. There's the person who's looking for their husband right now, and they're like, I want to get out of college and get married and start my life. But there's also people who think there's so much more that comes after college, so why would I settle for someone here? So I'm going to wait. Or even just, I think a lot of people plan their timeline around kids. Like, I don't want to have kids till I'm 30, so I'm not going to get married till I'm 29, which that's just another thing that's a little funky to me. And then the other one is just not interested in a relationship. And there's totally people out there, like, where it's just not God's plan for them to get married, or it's not even on their heart. Like, they just don't want a wife, don't want a husband, and their heart is devoted to serving God in other ways. And that's totally fine. You don't need a relationship to be honoring the Lord. No. But if you are in a relationship, how can you do it in a way that honors the Lord? So I guess then my question for you would be, considering that we're in the dating pool, the dating age, what are some of the most important lessons that you've learned recently in relationships? It's hard to compare them to high school because we're just different people than we were then. So what have you learned recently?
I will say my last relationship was like well over a year ago. We ended things, and that's kind of when I like really redevoted my life to Christ. So since that relationship ending, I really have only gone through 2 talking stages. And I would say that the biggest thing that I've learned is, like, in the past, I would kind of brush through red flags and I'd be like, oh, like, that's something that I don't necessarily love, but like, I can get past it. Or like, it's just not that big of a deal, like trying to talk myself out of it. And don't get me wrong, like, I do not think that there's someone that's going to be perfect. That's not a thing. But I do think that there's certain things where it's like, okay, well, when you're seeing like red flag after red flag after red flag and like brushing it under the rug, like, to me, that was just like me not knowing my full worth because I didn't. And I was just going to put up with certain things just to put up with it. And now realizing, like, being on the other side of that, at least recently, my last talking stage, the reason that it didn't work out and like the things that I was seeing was like, okay, like, this is how they're treating other people. This is how they're treating my friends. And paying attention to things like that, paying attention to what they say. Like, I'm going to read this verse, and I don't want to butcher it because it's a really good verse. And it's Luke 6:45. And it says, a good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart, and an evil person produces evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. What you say flows from what is in your heart. And I really do believe that. I think that you can tell a lot about how a person talks, how a person not only talks to you because they're putting on their best foot they're putting their best foot forward in hopes of dating you, most likely, if you're talking to someone, hopefully. But like, how do they treat your friends? How do they treat random people? How do they treat servers? How do they treat, at the end of the day, you're looking for someone to do ministry with. Like, you are looking for someone to do ministry with if you are a believer, and someone who's going to raise your kids. And like, that is something that I will not take lightly. Like, I just can't get past, like, this person is going to raise my kids. And that is so much more important than like even me. Like, yes, I want to be in a healthy relationship that honors the Lord, but it's like, these are generations to come, and I don't want to have kids who are scarred by a bad dad. Mm-hmm. And it goes both ways, or a bad wife. Like, yeah, for sure. That's just something that I don't want for my future. And I think I took that a little bit too lightly in the past.
Which goes right back to the looking long term when you're dating. When it's like, especially, I know there's verses out there that talk about how it's not about your outward beauty because the Lord cares about the soul. And it's so easy to get caught up in the looks and the flirtation and just what's really fun about the early stages of dating. And then you look past what it could look like long term. What are their goals in life? Do they actually have a plan, or are they just going where the wind blows them? And that's not to say that that's entirely wrong. I mean, I'm taking a completely different path than I thought I was doing when Preston and I started dating. But I'm still in pursuit of something. I'm not sitting around waiting. I'm still pursuing different things. And you reminded me of I don't know if it's a theory or just a common occurrence that happens within Christian people, which is missionary dating. And that's dating someone with hopes that you can change them. Yes. And it's such a dangerous thing, but so easy to do. I mean, I can't even give you any, like, I've done it too. It's so, especially when it's someone who, like, they have the good heart, or they, of course, helps when they're attractive, or just a good person to spend time with and be around. But especially if it's someone who doesn't know the Lord or isn't really walking in his path, you just can think, well, if I do it well enough, they're going to want to do it like me. Or if I just push them in the right direction, they'll start going that way. And that's not to say that people can't change, because they totally can. But at least what I believe is that a person will only change for one other person. I agree. And if that's not you, then move on. But also don't date someone in hopes that they're going to change. Because you want to date someone for who they are. So don't hope they're going to change. You're just going to get yourself hurt, and your hopes are going to be way too high. Again, not to say you can't have high hopes, but like, reality is also down here.
Yeah, I'm going to say one thing that I really do believe is, like, you do not want to marry potential. Like, you do not want to marry someone in hopes that they're going to change, because marriage is hard, and, like, you're going to go through a lot of really tough things. I mean, even dating, you're going to go through hard things. So if you are marrying someone with the hopes that, like, oh, they're going to change, they're going to change, they're going to change, they're going to get closer to the Lord, they're going to change this, they're going to change that, I would say you're in a really rough spot. I listened to a podcast last night, actually, and they talked about how there's a verse in the Bible, actually, that talks about being unequally yoked. And, like, it literally says that if you are married to someone who you're not equally yoked with, to win them over with acts of service. And as you can imagine, that would be a very hard marriage. Mm-hmm. Like, thinking about being unequally yoked with them, and then also, like, thinking about, like, trying to win them over with the way that you love them, which, not that that's not impossible. I think that is possible, and I think obviously God can change someone's heart, but that's why it's just so crucial to focus on what you are looking for in the dating stage, so that you don't have to deal with that when you're married. Like, mm-hmm. I think that's just really hard.
Mm-hmm. Also, on that verse, because I love that verse, I didn't understand the full meaning of it until I went to school, and it was actually I don't know if maybe it was this past semester when we were doing Fruit of the Spirit. I don't remember what it was, but I know that we read it. Mm-hmm. And being equally yoked, if you look at the historical biblical meaning, is when you have two oxen who are pulling, like, through a field or something, like they're farming, dragging equipment. And being unequally yoked is like having a baby oxen with a full-grown male oxen. That's not going to work. And even just the slightest difference, like, you need to look for, of course, this is literal when you're talking about oxen, but you'd be looking for the same strength, the same height, the same weight, pulling through a field. And that's the only way that they're going to go straight, that one's not going to get more tired, etc. So when you compare that to a relationship and being equally yoked, even if you are fully set on the Lord and you are walking straight and you are doing everything right, you love the Lord, etc., and you're on the right path, if your husband, fiance, boyfriend, whatever, is not on the same path as you, and they're holding you back, you're not even going to be able to go straight, because you're going to get turned with them, and you're going to get exhausted, because thinking about doing twice the amount of work, you're just dragging everything behind you. I mean, when you actually picture it in your head, it's like, oh my gosh, because honestly, I'm be honest, when I thought of equally yoked as like two eggs with the same size yolks, I was like, okay, sure, let's roll with it. So this makes a lot more sense for sure. But yeah, being equally yoked is a huge deal, and not having to, like I said with Preston, like, I never had to drag him to church, so that was a huge thing. I wanted to go to one of the verses that you talked about, which if you need to pull it up, that's totally fine. But okay, 1 Timothy 4:12, you'd mentioned that has the 5 things to look for.
1 Timothy 4:12. So it's actually not like a marriage verse or a dating verse, but it's the verse that's like, do not let anyone look down upon you because you are young, but set an example for all believers in speech, conduct, faith, purity, and love. And I think that those are like 5 really, really, really important things to look for. Like, is the person that you are considering devoted to their purity and your purity? Like, is that something that's important to them? Is the way they love others showing Christ? Is their faith there? Is, what else? What did I say? Speech is another one. Speech and conduct. Like, you can tell a lot about a person, like I already said, in speech. Like, what comes out of your mouth, like the Bible says, is from your heart. And whatever you are speaking is in your heart. And I think that there's definitely a difference between, like, I mess up in what I say sometimes, and I don't think anyone's perfect, but I do think that you can tell a lot. And like, what do they care to talk about? Like, are they deep as a person? Like, can you have deep conversations? Do they care about things in a deep sense? All of those things, like, can they hold a deep conversation, which is something that whole nother topic, but I feel like our generation struggles with. Can they hold a conversation in general? Yeah. Honestly. Yeah. And just like, what kind of conversations are you having? Like, what do they seem to care about? What are they interested in asking you about? Like, I feel like you can tell a lot about a person and like what they want to know about you even.
You're also reminding me, we mentioned this in the friendships episode, our last episode. Go watch it if you haven't. You've had 2 months. Anyways, in the same way of looking for things in a friendship and a relationship, because oftentimes those 2 things tie together, but looking for a person who embodies the fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, kindness, faith, self-control, which is, of course, a long list. And no one's going to be perfect at all of them. We all struggle and we all fall short in some degree. But honestly, just listing out those things and then asking yourself the question of, like, do they love? And if they love, how are they loving? And are they patient? When they're patient, how are they patient? I'm not a big supporter in ever testing someone to see if they're patient or testing to see if they're loyal, those types of things. I think that just kind of started with our generation. Like, some of the people who will make a fake Instagram account, that's just asking for problems. I'm just not a big supporter of doing things like that.
If you have to do that, I don't think that you should be dating, because that's just something that, like, if you actually have trust with the other person that you're with, I don't even feel like that thought should cross your mind.
And again, I've already mentioned Preston 1,000 times, so I'll just keep doing it for this episode. But one of the things that I loved about him specifically, especially in our college years when we were doing long distance, because long distance is so hard, which I can even get into further. That could be a whole podcast on its own. So many of these topics really could. But he never gave me any restrictions about what I was allowed to do, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, if I wanted to go out with my friends, or if there were guys over, or I'm trying to think, I don't know, going out of town with a friend for the weekend, he just gave me 2 thumbs up and said, have fun. Like, no concern about whether or not I was going to be off with someone. There was just full trust, which was so nice, because I never had to spend any of that time with my friends worrying about how he was going to react to something. Like, that's not trust. That's not love. And same goes for him. I mean, we have different personalities, so the things we enjoy are different for sure. But even if he didn't answer for 3 hours, I wasn't automatically resorting to, who's in his bed with him. I'm just going, oh my gosh, why didn't he charge his phone again? He's going to get lost and get in a car accident. Like, those are the different brain paths that we were taking. But on the long distance thing, actually, I got asked last week, which is kind of an interesting question, but why, which this is another college thing, because there's a lot of people that are going through long distance. But the question was, if you already know that long distance is hard, then why would you bother staying? And I guess I would answer that just by saying that long distance reveals a lot about the person that you're with. Did it suck? 100%, but I would do it again for the growth that we saw in our relationship, the trust that we developed, and we got the opportunity to become individuals, become more secure in the Lord without needing the other person to help make that happen. So it was very good for our relationship development. Luckily, we only had to be apart for 1.5 years and not 4 years. And I mean, all this respect to the people that can thug it out for 4 years, because that's just so hard. But I think when you find a person that you just don't have to worry about what they're doing, and you're just more concerned with getting the things done in the time and space and the season that God has put you in, is really important. And I know that you did long distance too, and of course you've seen both perspectives of it. And how did you know in the middle of long distance that it wasn't going to work, if that makes sense?
Okay, so without getting so crazy into it, I've had multiple long distance relationships, so I feel like I've seen a lot of different sides in a sense. My most recent relationship was long distance, and I think that was like the healthiest long distance I've done, because I have had long distance relationships, a lot of them without trust, and like that's really hard, because then you kind of feel like you can't really like be with your friends, and you have to like report what you're doing, who you're with, where you're going, blah 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 blah, every like 3 to 5 seconds. So that's really hard. But like being in a healthier long distance relationship, what I'll say is if both people really care about each other and they want to make it work, it can work. Like I really do believe that. I believe that. I've had failed long distance relationships. I still believe that. I still would consider it. I think that where it gets tricky is if one person is more invested than the other, and one person really cares about like communication, because if you're not communicating, I think it's really easy to feel like you don't really like know each other anymore. You know what I mean? Like you definitely can grow apart. So if one person really cares about communication, one person doesn't, then you can kind of see how it can like get a little bit tricky. But the whole trust thing can be really tough, which we'll get into later, because I think a lot of it goes into projection too. And I think that you can tell a lot about a person being long distance. Like you said, like, is that person freaking about everything you're doing because of what they're doing? Or is it because, you know what I mean? Like, is it really lack of trust, or is it projecting, or is it, there's just so many different things.
I'm going to mention this only because stories make these podcasts so much more entertaining. And of course, we'll never name drop unless it's, you know, like I can say Preston's name now, because we're, you know, there's no end now here, of course. In my other long distance relationship that I had aside from Preston, I mean, it just drove me up a wall because it was so confusing and frustrating. But I got in trouble for going to a youth group because it was at a boy's house. Even though it was a youth group, there were like trusted adults there. There were other girls my age there, other guys there, and I got in trouble. And his response was like, oh, well, I'm just going to go to the bar then. And it was like, that's just so immature. Like I learned so much about that person just because of how they reacted to that. But same thing with the projection of like that relationship ended up ending because I got cheated on. So like no wonder he was being all stressed out about where I was and who I was with, because he was with the people he wasn't supposed to be with, and that ended up causing his downfall. So yeah, I mean, long distance, especially with communication, opens up the doors so much to also just effort. I mean, the things that you have to come up with in order to keep your relationship exciting when you don't see each other for 10 weeks at a time. You're watching movies and baking on FaceTime, and that's just what your relationship becomes. And if you're not willing to put the effort into that, then that's probably not someone you'd want to marry anyways. Right. So it taught us a whole bunch of things. I mean, even the failed ones, and now gives you better glasses for what you're supposed to look for now. So no regrets for it, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that if you're watching this and you are still looking for that person and you are in a season of singleness, because like even like me and Megan, me and a lot of my friends honestly are in different stages of life and just different seasons. And I am in that waiting season. And I think that 1 Timothy 4:12 is a really great verse to turn to when you are just examining a person's heart and like their character. And of course, every person has flaws, and there's not going to be like this perfect person that's like does nothing wrong. But I do think that those are really important things to look for. And like, are they mature? Can they communicate? How do they treat the people around them? How do they treat their family? Like, how do they handle situations that don't go their way? How do they serve people that can do nothing for them? Like, how do they treat those people and just situations like that? Anger is another really big thing that I look at. Like, is this person angry at small stuff? Do they get mad easily? Do they, just all the things that you can examine a person. And like, I would say, I know that apparently I'm too picky. Be picky with like who you are going to date, because I also feel like that person is a reflection of you in a sense. Like, that person's definitely a reflection of you, and not that that's like the most important thing. Like, obviously, when you are dating for marriage, you want to be picky with the person that you're going to marry, in my opinion. And I think it's hard in our generation because, unfortunately, there's just not a lot of good people. And I think that young adults struggle with commitment, and our generation in general struggles with committing and marrying and settling down and all the things because of everything this world has in it. So if that is something you desire, I'd just be patient and trust God. He's going to provide someone. And I have gone through different phases in my life of like, yes, like I have that desire for sure, without a doubt in my mind. But it's also like, I know that I have so much that I can be doing in preparation for that. And like, whenever God decides that it's time to bring that into my life, like I will be prepared. And like, I have stewarded my single season well, and that's really the goal, and that's really what you want to do, and that's my focus right now. And also being like, this gives me so much time to like put extra time into my friendships and my family and like things that I won't necessarily be able to put all my attention to in the future.
I totally want to emphasize what you said on just that everyone's on a different timeline, and that's okay, especially since our podcast is tailored to young adults. There's some people who are in college and some people who didn't choose college, and some people are already in their careers. And the same thing is with relationships, because you might be fresh out of a heartbreak or fresh in a new relationship, engaged, dating, married. We're all on different time scales, and there's not one that you're supposed to be on. So just because we've mentioned that we have the desire to get married young and not sit around and wait, if you're in that mindset and you're not finding a person, that's okay. Whatever God has in store is so much better than the wildest dreams that you have in your head. And I'm probably like the worst person to hear it from now, because I'm in this relationship high, of course, of being engaged and planning a wedding, and like such a fun chapter to be in. But it wasn't fun a year ago, and I wouldn't have expected to be in the shoes that I am now. Right. And even before dating Preston, my wildest dreams weren't as good as I find our relationship. I never thought that you could be so into someone that you'd have no eyes for anyone else. And that's how I feel. And it's such a blessing to feel that way and to have a person who has a pursuit for the Lord that I do. Yeah. And if that's what you're desiring, that's totally in the books for you. Just it's still going to come to you no matter what you do. It's just how damaged are you going to be when God gives it to you? Because if you are waiting for this great relationship and you're praying for it from God, and He knows when He's going to give it to you, but then you settle because you just want a relationship, where you're still going to end up not with them. You're still going to end up hurt, and then you're going to wind up with the person that God designed for you, but your heart's going to have a lot more scars. You're going to be, your walls are going to be up, and that relationship isn't going to be as fruitful as He designed it to be.
I kind of like want to emphasize what you're saying. If I have learned anything, and if I would say something over and over and over and over again, it's do not settle because you want that. Like, do not settle because you desire a relationship and desire to be married. Like, genuinely, you will thank yourself in the long run if you are patient and you wait on God's timing and you pray. Like, devote yourself in prayer. Be praying for your future spouse if that's what you desire. Be praying for yourself. Be asking God to prepare you for to be a future wife or a future husband. Like, those are all really, really important things. But you really will thank yourself in the long run if you do not settle for something that's less than what God has for you, because you were impatient and because you just wanted it right away.
If you're looking for a guy that's patient and you can't even be patient yourself, girl, look yourself in the mirror. Oh my gosh. And especially in the season of singleness or the season of long distance, 100% what Faith said. It's your time to focus on your relationship with God and your relationship with the people around you, because your life is going to take a complete 180 once you're in a relationship there, you're number one behind the Lord. So everything changes. I was in my college town this last weekend, and it was fabulous and definitely a little bittersweet to enjoy some of the things about, like, I got to sleep in the apartment that my old roommates are now staying in, and I got to help them get ready for their graduation pictures, and just like being all together in girlhood, and that feeling was so fantastic. I'm like, oh man, like I'm really going to miss this, but that doesn't take away from how good it's going to be married to my godly man. Just soak up the season that you're in and don't look for something beyond what God already has designed for you. And I think we're going to do a lot of relationship podcasts, and there's so many different pathways that we can take today, just specifically things that you can be looking for. I know at the time that we're releasing this is generally at the end of the school year and going into summer. And it's an opportunity, of course, to meet people, but also to develop a new routine. So when you go home and you're starting your new jobs or your internships or whatever is in this new change and season of life, take it as an opportunity to look at how you can bring the Lord into it 100%. And like we've said 1,000 times over, our DMs are always open if you're looking for advice, or if you have questions, or if you have anything that you want to hear on the podcast. This is 100% your opportunity to reach out and get it to us. We're back together now for at least the time being. Yes, we've got time that we're going to be putting stuff together. Faith is just going to come with me on my honeymoon so that we can do some Boldly His. But we've got fun stuff coming for sure. But we want to hear from you and tailor to our audience. So just let us know what you want in the future.
We should have some special guests coming up. Even should. They will be on here. So we're going to have some guests. We're going to get some people on here. I know that relationships is a really interesting topic, I think. So I'm sure we'll do more on that. I would love to get my mom on here because I know that she would love to talk about relationships. But yeah, so just stay tuned. Follow us on Instagram, Boldly His podcast. I think that's for all of our social medias. TikTok
is Boldly His 1, but we're trying to
Boldly His 1. And I think that's it, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we will have no more microphone problems by the next episode, hopefully. I know we say that every time, but truly it's coming to an end, we promise. We will not be passing this back and forth soon, hopefully.
You remind me, I figured out how to get our things onto Spotify. I figured out how to do it, but it's time consuming. So I'm going to work on that as well. I don't know how Apple works, so I'm going to throw that at Faith and let her figure it out. We're going to try and get these onto actual podcast apps so that you're not just having to watch on YouTube and TikTok shorts and all the things. So yes, but let us know how we can be reaching you, how we can be praying for you, and anything else that we can be doing to serve you guys. So thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your week and go from this place knowing you are loved.